Yeah, we're getting started. Thank you everyone so much for coming out tonight. We're super excited to have you. This is our first Dividing the Next Decade event here in Berlin. So thank you for kind of joining us to make this all possible. To kind of give you a little bit of background and insight of what Dividing the Next Decade is, it's a concept that started in LA, and the idea is really to kind of focus on how we as people who live in cities can really look to take a conscious effort in the choices that we make to define whatever that future is. So every day we spend time in other people's imaginations, so whatever that imagination is, it should be a collective vision that we're all pretty excited about. And so we really focus on having discussions about what is it that is the world that we want to see, and kind of bringing some people who have interesting perspectives to encourage us all to kind of have this kind of discussion. So with that in mind, tonight we are going to talk a little bit about between technology and creativity. We are joined by some amazing people who are going to share some their perspectives specific to the city of Berlin. And we're going to have a discussion that's led by Sebastian Baier. So I will turn it over to you to share a little bit more about both yourself and kind of what you do, and then also the wonderful people that we have joining us.
Cool. So it is about Berlin, yeah, and about how Berlin started as a cultural city full of creatives going into a town where technology is actually ruling now. Can I ask who in here is from Berlin? Okay. who of those guys is longer in Berlin than 10 years? Okay. So we just had this chat. I came to Berlin in 2005, coming from the music industry, actually as a DJ and as a student, and pretty quickly ran into the Berlin nightlife scene, which was by then a venue called Bar 25, which was a pretty colorful thing. For like 7 years, we were living actually there and developing a club. I was doing the bookings there, and it was like, I would say it's kind of the first co-living project in Berlin with a lot of culture and crazy stuff happening. After that, I founded a few other clubs and one cultural venue called EyeEm with a lot of arts and music and concerts and street food and culinary stuff, a lot of that stuff. And at the moment, I'm operating the Co.Creation Loft with my fellow partner here, Jan, which is a conscious co-working space that is we rented for workshops and we do a lot of programming and all of this. So when I came here in 2005, this is almost 15 years ago, and I think, oh my God, how much did this city change actually? I'm coming from Munich. Munich is a town that does never change. I think it didn't change since 1480 when they invented the beer. It stayed like it is. But Berlin changed so much, right? I mean, yesterday I was at the TEDx Berlin 10th anniversary conference, and they had this guest called Cookie. Maybe you know Cookies, that was a very famous club, and he showed pictures from 1992. He came in 92, showing pictures of empty houses where they just put up clubs, and he was saying thing like, okay, we didn't invest too much because we didn't know if we're going to be thrown out tomorrow because we don't know who this belongs to. There was no ownership. Houses were actually owned by the bank. So Berlin was like a melting pot, like a magnet for creatives all around the world that came here. When I came here in 2005, it was still, you could see this eastern and western part still melting, yeah. It was a big difference still. All of this is just, you know, at the moment it's so vibrant and so new. So I want to talk with my nice panelists here. One of them is a good friend also. I'll introduce you guys and please give them a warm hand as I call them up. So the first is, he has to leave a bit earlier. We have to, he'll just disappear at some point, so don't worry. We'll take him to focus at the beginning. So he's an entrepreneur, a designer, and a creative director. His name is Tai Abbett. He is a dear friend. He's a managing director and the founder of Beluga, alongside with his partner here, Eden. He's also a filmmaker, and a member of the Co.Creation Loft where I work. Richard Wilhelmer. The founder of this place is also in the room. Founder and design director of IXDS, Reto Wettach. The two Berlin old school guys here, I think. Yeah. Right. And the co-founder and CTO of EyeEm is also in the house, Ramzi, Rizk. Exciting. So, Maxwell asked me to do one thing in the beginning for my 4 panelists. Describe Berlin in one word.
Vibrant. Slack.
It's all about project.
Potential.
Very nice. I would maybe ask you, because I think you've been here for a long time, out of your perspective, like personally plus professionally, how did you experience the changes that have been going on, let's say, in the last 10 years in Berlin?
Well, I chose the word project because I think that's something which stays. And we arrived here in Berlin, and as you mentioned, everything was open. It was not clear who belongs, the houses, to whom do they belong. Everything was really open. And one of the things which stood in Berlin is that people do projects. And I think this is really, throughout all the changes and the drastic changes in rent and in professionalization and so on, everybody is still on a project. And whether it's in private life, your relationship is a project, or your open relationship is a project, your child is kind of a project, whether it's your living situation, that's a project. How we live together today might change and tomorrow is differently, or in work, even your company, I would say, is an ongoing project and an ever-evolving project. And I think this mindset is something which was staying and over all these changes which were happening. And I think that's a very interesting mindset which makes Berlin quite unique.
Yeah, very well said. What's your experience as Jeremy? I see you.
I'm just going to give you one experience and I'm going to leave because I have to go to Stuttgart for a car manufacturer thing, and they're having some kind of Krisa meeting, so that's why I have to be down there. So here's my experience. I was first in Berlin in 1994 as an exchange student. I came here. Mitte was not the way it was. There were bullet holes on the walls and stuff. It was cool. I'll give you a story. I went into a skate shop. I was with a fellow exchange student. I went to school in Wisconsin, but we had an exchange in Hildesheim. And we went in there, and it was pretty cool. And then on the sofa, maybe this is too much information, they were smoking kiffna. They were smoking dope, basically. We went in there, they were totally cool, we got totally baked, or high, whatever you guys got, on the train, and then, I don't know, it's just an interesting experience. The question then for you is Berlin going to stay that way, where you feel that you're welcomed, you can be part of whoever invites you in and do your thing, or is it going to be more like the Mitte we know today, which is very commercial, it feels very crowded, it's a place that I try to avoid whenever I come to Berlin on the weekends? Or is it going to be like the stuff that Reto's making, like establishing companies that really are concerned about the social aspects of what we're doing and not about profit. So being an ex-Googler, I used to work at Google, it's kind of like this battle, Right now, Google is, I think there's this, they're trying to take over this Kreuzberg or somewhere, I know, and it's, whatever happens, Berlin is going to get more expensive, no doubt, but I think, without a doubt, it's going to be more expensive. I think it's only a matter of time before the Russians come in, nothing against Russians,
they're here already,
and start buying up property and raising the thing. So I think it's up to us as designers or business people or entrepreneurs to keep that on the down low and keep it to where you feel like you can go into a skate shop and just have a good time with people and then just kind of chill. But I mean, it really is up to us. But I think the forces are really hard. I think business is really, really compelling. I know in Germany it's not as persuasive as in the US, where I'm from, but I know that there are companies like Google and other companies that are really making a huge play for your talent. So we'll see if you guys, IyeEm as well, I know your other co-founder. We'll see what happens, but it's pretty much it's up for grabs, I would say. I don't know, is it going to be the dystopia like in Blade Runner, or is it going to be zombie apocalypse? Who knows? That's up to us. But thanks for having me. I got to take off. Yeah.
So we have enough space, Richard. This is what we want. Perfect. We both come from the south. Richard comes from around, not from Vienna, but you work in Vienna and you come from Austria. I come from Munich, so we're both like kind of from the same direction. Where did you come?
Actually, I never worked in Vienna, which is interesting. Because I moved to Berlin pretty much directly after I graduated.
Okay.
15 years ago, and I've always been living in Kreuzberg, and always been living in the same street, Grefestraße. Some of you might know it, and it's actually a great symbol for the transformation that happens in the city, and for the gentrification also that happens in the city. And the word that I chose was slack, for the reason that when I moved to Berlin, my mom, who grew up in South Austria, actually, pretty much on the countryside. And when my mom came to visit me once, actually I think she visited me twice since I've been here for over 15 years. She doesn't like to travel much. But she came and she said, is anybody working here? Or all those people just slacking? Everybody was slacking, like the canal was full of people that just had time. And I came here to study at the University of the Arts, digital art actually. And what we had back then was, first of all, time. And I'm not speaking now that I don't have this much time anymore. I'm speaking about not just being a student and having time. Everybody had time. There was, the rents were low. You did not need more than, I don't know, €3 to get a decent meal. Everybody was doing, and I like the introduction with projects. Everybody was doing projects, but not for earning success or anything, just for the sake of it. We pretty much had the time to try out, to do things. And the other coin of this story, which is why I like the word slack, is that we transformed from slackers to slash users, which I think is an odd development. And now I have the feeling still here. I've now founded, actually coming from IXDS, doing arts, a strategic design agency with my fellow founder Edwin here, was coming from research, which is really interesting in terms of values also, I would like to say. And now we are running. Now we don't have time anymore, and I think it's not just because I grew up, because it's people have to run to earn their money. It's because people don't have this time anymore, and they're using, paradoxically, this app called Slack to run after their time and to be more and most efficient. But maybe to this later. So yeah, that's my take.
Ramzi, how's your story? I mean, you founded in Berlin. Do you feel that this city was something that welcomed the founder, and did you have a good environment to grow your business?
Yeah, I mean, I lived here for 10 years before founding the company, so I've been here for a while as well. I would like to actually take a contrarian view, because I feel like everyone is waxing poetic about how amazing and open and beautiful Berlin was back then. And if you wanted to do something, it was really, really hard. Slack is another word for lazy, and it was a lazy freaking city. And so I personally always had an issue with that. I would get up at 8, 9, go to work, finish work in the evening, come back home. My friends had just woken up, and they're basically having their latte macchiato because they get enough money from the government that they don't have to do anything. And then we'd go out, party. Come back home at 3, I'd sleep my 5 hours, wake up and go to work, and they would go in that other routine. And so I do fundamentally have an issue with that notion of let's keep it that way. I'm actually, to go to an extreme, I'm actually pro gentrification. I think gentrification also means diversity, and Berlin is way more diverse today than it was when I came here. It's much safer as well. It makes a difference. It's you couldn't go shopping on a Sunday. You couldn't buy groceries on a Sunday. You couldn't go buy groceries on a Saturday afternoon. You could, right? It was really hard for someone who wanted to do something. Supermarkets would close. I don't know if you guys remember this, those who lived here before. But supermarkets were always, I mean, they still close on Sundays. They would close, I think, noon on Fridays, on Saturdays, and like 6 on Fridays, and 7, whatever, the rest of the week. So anyone who actually had a job, they were screwed. So yes, it was cheaper, and yes, rents are cheap, but and they're still very freaking cheap. Let's be honest. Right? It's I think it's a little disingenuous to say that. And in the end, I think the heart and soul of Berlin is not that sort of misnomer that it's poor but sexy. I think there's value to Berlin that goes beyond the fact that it's affordable, and that value is the people that are in it. And I think the different kinds of people that come and go, it's all the same. When I first came here, recently I watched a video documentary shot by interviewing all Berliners, talking about the standing, the street I live on, and yes, I probably live in Mitte. And they were complaining about how the city had changed and how everything was getting more expensive, and all these people are coming into town, ruining the clubs and so on and so forth. I was like, yeah, I'm fine with that. Until the credits roll, you realize that was shot in '94. So basically, it's this exact same complaint that people keep. So that's my experience. I think it's an amazing city. I look up to New York. I'm the kind of person who actually sees New York as kind of a beacon when it comes to creativity, and kind of a beacon because everyone has, literally everyone actually has a project in New York. The difference is though, people execute on their projects in New York. And a lot of the time in Berlin, people have a project that they don't do anything about. So that's my 2 cents.
I mean, I think gentrification generally is that the average living costs are going up, right? So those lazy people that you talked about cannot maybe afford so much to be that lazy anymore and need to professionalize, or more professional people come to town, which is, I think, the fact. Also not, so I think Berlin is professionalizing, which is exactly our topic today. I mean, I think the town is changing still a lot, and I sometimes don't know if the town is changing in a way that the inhabitants of this town really want it to change. I mean, in 2010 we were demonstrating all against Wovereit in front of the Rent mayor's town hall because there was Mediaspray. Today it might be called Tech-Spray, because back then the media was the big thing, and they wanted to erase the whole coast of the Spree, and we were there with all our clubs, and it was nice, and the Wovereit went abroad and sold Berlin to investors, and they came and bought Berlin. Today they try to buy it back, which is not so easy actually. Does this resonate with any one of you guys, like that Berlin kind of changes in a way that the people don't really want it to change?
Well, I like your intro a lot, to be honest. I mean, why did we all come to Berlin? Is of course because it's a changing city, and I'm a little bit similarly to you, annoyed for people who want to have it staying exactly like they found it, or they maybe shaped it for maybe a couple of years. But that's what makes it interesting. It's changing, and it's us changing it, of course, with our, whoever complains that Mitte is changing, I'm living there. I'm actually quite fine. I have tons of tourists in front of my house. I don't have only to see my neighbors, but I can see people from America or Asia. When Fashion Week, I see fashion people. When other weeks, I see other people. And things are changing, and I think it's sometimes hard to be in a city which is constantly changing. But for me, that was the reason to come here. I come also from Bavaria, and also from a town which doesn't change, and it's depressing. It's depressing when it's clear this family owns that part, and they have always done like this, and this restaurant has been there, and so on. It's quite exciting that things are changing, and I think it's what is quite interesting. The commercialization of Berlin Mitte. This is thanks to tourists. It's not to the locals. So this is because it's such a tourist destination, and somewhere they need to spend their money. But a lot of the changes are also extremely interesting. And as you said, they are more professional. But I think there's still the spirit of experimental projects. Be it in sharing economy, be it in new kinds of working together, they are happening in the town, and they are challenging. They are challenging to my business, they are challenging to established big businesses, they even, I guess in some parts also sometimes challenging for the startups, but that's what's happening, and I think this keeps us alive. I'm really grateful for that.
I think it's something, and also referring to what you said before, and not to get me wrong, I think that was, the reason for a lot of people to back then to move to Berlin, because it was so cheap. You didn't have to earn much, but you had time, and not too lazy in terms of slack to do nothing, but to experiment. The word that you just dropped. It are those people that then experimented, that learned programming, that did digital. I'm coming a little bit from the art scene where it's different, where being lazy is already part of the project. But what it does to you is it gives you time to reflect and think, to play around. In other cities, like coming from Austria, or circumstances like Vienna, people had to go to study. Their parents were like, you have to get into the, get things done, which is great. But on the other hand, I appreciate a lot that there was actually not this pressure, and had the time to experiment. All those people that I grew up, like people like, that started clubs that are now super successful. I'm having 2 kids now. I'm glad that the street that I'm living in is not in the exact same situation that it has been 50 years ago. At the same time, and what I wanted to say is that those people that have been there, like I've met some of them today, which was really great, that I didn't know we had so many friends in common, really shaped the city and are now running maybe successful business, maybe less successful businesses, maybe they became famous artists, maybe they are still being artists, maybe they have to move away eventually. So there is always two sides to every coin, and on the other hand I must say also, coming back to the street that I'm living in, it is a little bit shocking that this opportunities that you kept talking about, they are just not there for everyone, and that is a problem that must not be forgotten. Like in the city, in the street that I'm living, there is like the super, you know, you can do everything on the one side, and if you just cross the street, people have to leave and move outside of town. The businesses and social circumstances that have been living with for many. It happens in many cities, and Berlin will grow and is still cheap compared to other capitals in the Western world. But this great potential turned into something, and the people shaped it, which is really great.
And we may not forget there's still plenty of space. It's maybe Kreuzberg and Mitte, but if you look Brandenburg, I mean, there's no sky. I mean, it's there's still space. I mean, it's interesting. I'm at the university and I'm observing that because, of course, for students, maybe inner city becomes a little bit more expensive. They go outside and they found communes and they have like old farmhouses they share with 10, 15 people. It's also very interesting. I think the interesting aspect of this is that the appreciation of projects is very high here. It's not about money. I'm so grateful we are not in Silicon Valley where everything is defined through money. The school of your kids, your car, your house, you can read it, how much money is there. No, here it's really the respect for the project, and whatever you do, people have respect for it, and they listen to it, and they think you have something to contribute, and I think this is still going on. And regarding the rent, I think it's nice, but also we had, I mean, ridiculously big apartments. This was really crazy, and I was living in Tokyo before I came back to Berlin. And it's also there, at that time they had the highest rent in the world, and also there people lived in experimental stages. And I think it's really more a mindset and an appreciation, and I have the feeling the appreciation goes here far further than the little community in Tokyo, which were people like that. So I think this is really the nice thing.
I totally agree. I think that, you know, I'm not trying to be the guy that goes like, you know, fuck the poor, right? That's not my point. And I personally also do have moments where I'm like, I do miss that clubs were 5 minutes away. You know, I do miss that every Sunday afternoon I'd be napping at Boston Sunday. Like that was the thing before heading to bed.
Just coming for a nap, yeah.
Just coming for a nap after, or coming in the morning, napping, and going to club. And I miss that. Clubs are further out, but would I, you know, like to have everything back the way it was, and that, you know, do I like the fact that getting a decent internet connection takes months? But there are certain qualities of life, but I think again the society here is one that will take care of itself, and there is a sense of social responsibility. So to me, you know, I don't think Berlin, whatever happens, will become a San Francisco, which I think is like accessible to humanity. If it becomes something more like New York, I don't think that's a very bad thing. Obviously, we have a responsibility to make sure that we're not screwing over everyone who used to live here for forever, but there is a certain evolution in the shape and the form and the structure of the city. So that at some point, maybe Berlin is also a capital that isn't the only capital in Europe. If you take it out of the GDP of the country, the GDP grows, right? There's something to be said to that. And I think it takes time, and that's why it feels like it's moving so fast. But I still see tons of potential, and I don't see the downside of the city becoming more mature.
It makes it a big potential. I mean, what happened actually at the downside back then, and we were before that meeting all these people, was that it was a little bit of a limited scene though. It was the people that were living in. There was not that high frequency of people coming, traveling, and taking part of this only also just for a nap at a club or something or whatever else. So that is something that very positively changed and shapes this potential. And I think most people don't want Berlin to be the way that was. It's just that they are maybe sometimes, thinking back to those times and this potential, and but everybody is actually now shaping and performing this.
absolutely. I mean, and this series is not about looking back only, it's all about looking into the future. So this was a good intro. Actually, also, I would say like a last round. Guys, give me a vision of Berlin in 10 years. Just in like 2 sentences. What do you think it would be like?
Well, I mean, already I can see parts of it. I think we are in the midst of a fundamental change, hopefully in an economical sense. And I think Berlin, with this project attitude, and if you look into technology, I think a lot of the way we work on technology is also very much sharing. I mean, it's really, when I look at companies which open up APIs, when I see at the blockchain scene, which is huge in Berlin, when I see at the open source scene, which has a very strong position in Berlin, I think it's about sharing. And I have the feeling that this project mindset, hopefully, and that's my dream for the 10 years coming up, will be becoming a standard in economy. So it's not about the individual getting richer and richer in a way which is unthoughtable in human history, but really about using the technology to make something which matters, to experiment with it, and to see that you have a purpose on that. What you do it together with others, and if it fails, well, you start the next thing. And I think that's hopefully this mindset hopefully will be even stronger in 10 years in Berlin.
Thank you.
What to add?
I disagree with everything you said.
I have a view generally on how society is evolving and how sort of the construct and notion of work and sustenance and the creation of value is going to change. And I think if things pan out in that way, where the idea of work becomes different, then slack becomes lazy, becomes creative, becomes innovative. And in that sense, Berlin is kind of set up to be that place, right? So I'm very excited. I think it will never become a Silicon Valley. I will work very, very hard to make sure that doesn't happen in as much as I can do it. I do think it will become more expensive, and that's a fact. I think it will become even larger, even more international, and that's a good thing. And I think the society that lives here, the people that the actual original locals, will still have the Berliner Schnauze, and that's a good thing. And so I'm very, very positive on the future, and I think creativity will be kind of the core driver and the big differentiator between Berlin and other places.
So you guys see yourselves in Berlin also in 10 years? Yeah, sounds like that.
No, actually, I like two aspects that I would also have said is like not flying cars, but at least autonomous cars. And this would be a game changer. It's hard, of course, to just speak about Berlin in that matter. But Berlin is very special for, and this is something that you said before, is Brandenburg surrounding Berlin with so much space, with so many empty buildings for like almost nothing. And what I think maybe it will develop back a little bit in that matter, that if, that sense that you might be if just this vision, right? And maybe 10 years is a little bit too close, and I'm not speaking about hopes, but maybe about visions. And of course that would be a game changer. But if you imagine you could do whatever work and you gain time by maybe and space by living somewhere outside with your kids and in a beautiful, and then get into your car. I mean, I really love it. I have one of those. I bought this super cheap little houses because I have those two kids and I want to also have them a little bit outside of Berlin. And I'm always driving like this 1.5 hours there, and shit, I have to get out of here as fast as I can. To get on the road. But if I would just get into the car and say, bring me there, I might as well finish my emails, come home. So that's something that is really, that is one of, I think, a great vision. And flying autonomous cars would be maybe top notch. And the other aspect I wanted to add on, I think, is joy. I think that the idea of, that's a very, very interesting article that I've met in the Business Insider recently, and it was about education. And the idea was, and I found that really interesting, that if we think about maybe changing mobility circumstances, maybe changing jobs, maybe robotic, maybe AI that knocks in, and maybe many people lose their jobs, maybe us, that you should develop a different approach towards work that is not based on earning money, that you then spend for being happy at, I don't know, IKEA or anything worse. But if you find something that actually gives you joy by doing so. And I think this is something where the circle closes a little bit, and where we came from before, is that if you find something that you really like to do and you appreciate what you do, I think these are going to be the people that will shape this new society, because they don't have to, because some might just not be capable to do so because they wouldn't earn this money, and the other don't have to have this, you know, they do something they would really like to, and I think they would do it good, like I think as it's always been. So this core will not change.
And if we go on with global warming, we will have a nice beach here maybe in City and go wave riding.
Tropical island.
Tropical island. It's going to be great. That's my vision. I'll open this to you guys now, so we don't want to stay here forever. Is there a microphone?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would ask. I'm going to kick off the round of questions. So if you had any, if you were yourself 10 years ago living in this Berlin, what one piece of advice would you give to yourself, or like kind of your general experience?
Buy real estate.
Yes, I was going to say the same.
and Bitcoin.
Asking the guys or asking the people?
Oh, I'm asking these guys.
These guys, okay.
I wouldn't have needed that advice, to be honest. I'm fine with how I did my life, and it's not something that I thought, oh, would I have known? Yeah, well, I would have bought more real estate or so. The last shirt has no pockets.
I don't agree. I think hindsight in that case is just a waste of time. Every choice you make led to, every choice I made led me to be sitting here tonight lecturing about some random topic. So I don't have advice for myself. I think that's also Berlin is quite forgiving, and that's a good thing.
I had there was just a really interesting conversation maybe half a year ago. I met top investor pretty much, and he's dealing with money all the time. And I was speaking. He was on a wedding. And I had this conversation with him, and I was like, what's your... I was just interested. If you... he's working, of course, in Switzerland, and it was about cash or shares, or what would you invest? And he didn't seem like a very conscious person, really. But what he said, he was like, you know what? And I don't know so much, actually, about like the finance branch. I'm an artist, pretty much, right? So, money. But I know a little bit because I'm interested. And I asked him if I would have, how would you save your, how would you save money, or how would you save your video? Where would you put your money if you have something left? And he said, that's something I learned. There is no free lunch anymore. He said any capital that you invest, anything you do is going to be venture. It's going to be risky. The only thing, and even if you put your money or cash under your pillow, it might just be not worth anything anymore the next day, if any. I don't want to speak about it, but if something might happen. And what he said, and I found it so interesting, he said you should invest into your social network. And he wasn't very esoteric about it. He was very pragmatic about it. He was like, you should really, like, if you have the chance to live in a community or to have like real friends and not just follow like some idol, try to save your ass, just your ass. Maybe try to find other people to save each other's asses. And that was kind of I mean, it sounds very obvious, but for me it was an eye-opener to come from this person that was like with a Rolex and everything. Yeah, I thought that was very interesting.
Don't you think that's because he's walking around the world? He has the luxury to actually say things like that.
But yeah, of course. But if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. What is left when there is nothing left?
Yeah, so now we can open it up. So if you want to have a question, raise your hand.
Comment.
I mean, maybe it's up for the Berliners in here to grab the mic.
There were two or something.
Say there are few. Is there any opinions on how to shape Berlin for the future?
Yeah, just it.
Okay. I don't know if this is super related to Berlin, but it would be interesting because it's about decades to kind of understand how recent developments in technology have shaped your lives and your creative endeavors. In a positive way, negative way, both, you know.
Yeah, maybe that's again a very Berlinish kind of answer. I have the feeling really, and I tried to say before, that we have built a culture of making technology accessible to creatives, and be it through a huge range of meetups and workshops and hackathons, be it through tools which has been created here and offered for free or for very little money, be it really also sharing knowledge. I mean, through all the universities here, you have so much, you have a huge access to people who know things, and you can easily contact them. So I have the feeling that the way we deal with technology, and we use technology to be creative about it and to think about it in an open way, is quite unique. And it's not like NDA driven, it's not like, oh, this is my idea. I'm really impressed by that. And I mean, we are trying with IXDS, we host pre-work talks once a month and try to share what we learn, get other people to share what they learn, to really bring this forward. And I think that's something I see, which makes me really being happy to be here, because it's quite, on a very personal level, this kind of exchange is happening.
And globally, it's obviously, in a lot of ways it's the same, right? I work with tech day and night, and creativity as well, I guess, if you think about it. So you can build algorithms that detect beauty, right? And that's kind of really controversial in and of itself. And we build stuff that touch the lives of 25 million photographers. It's, you know, massive stuff. And I think technology is a great enabler, and I think it's crazy that we live in times where everything is so accessible. But that's always been the case one way or another. It's just always evolving. I do have a lot of fear, though, about the future, and that's kind of one of the things that personally worry me, and actually I do spend a lot of time thinking and trying to figure out ways to I don't know, avoid this dystopic future that I see sort of barreling down the highway. And I think it goes a little bit towards what you said. Technology is pretty much automating everything, and that's a fact. The majority of jobs will be gone in the next few decades, and that is a fact. And this will lead to more anger, more populism, more sort of social and socioeconomic upheaval. And for me, at least, that's a fact. I think though, in the long run, what technology will lead to is a utopia after the fact. After that sort of, if we humans survive these next couple of decades, I think we'll be living in sort of a utopia where what happens is you decouple work from sustenance. The notion of work is no longer I work to buy food and pay rent, but I work to create because I'm driven, because I'm human, because that's what I need to do. And sort of sustenance is taken care of. And I think that is kind of a beautiful future, because that would mean everyone has a place, and everyone has the opportunity to create, and everyone has sort of the baseline required to contribute on a higher level. But obviously, to get to that point, there's hell, right? To get to the point of autonomous cars, there's tens of thousands of taxi drivers, tens of thousands of insurance car companies. I'm talking Germany, right? There's hundreds of millions of people just talking about self-driving cars who will no longer have a job, right? And they will be angry, and they will feel betrayed. And I recently learned this term called the Protestant work ethic, which is basically that what you earn is a function of time, and meaning you work hard, you earn. You work hard, you earn. You can buy a house, you can pay your mortgage, you have a car, 3 kids, they go to school, and that's sort of a social pact. It actually comes from the Bible, right? Which is kind of absurd, because everyone here is not in that group anymore. And I might be generalizing, but everyone here is a creative one way or another, and you don't do hourly wages in the same classical way that an assemblyman worker does. And I think those people will feel betrayed, and they are definitely underrepresented, and we're being very disingenuous when we say, you know what, we'll train them. where we'll take the cab driver and train them to build neural networks, and we'll take the assembly line worker and teach them how to use I don't know how to use InDesign and become a design. I think that's just absolutely disingenuous, and those people are angry, and more of them will be angry, and so to me that's the big societal worry, whether it's in Berlin or anywhere else.
All right. I want to add one aspect actually, and that's perception. I think those like how, and there's a question how do we think about it and how does it affect us. I think perception plays a major role. And to pick up on that, maybe I've recently, and maybe some of you know the book, it was quite famous, Abundance, and it carried by Peter Diamandis from Silicon Valley, Peter Thiel Jr. And the subtitle of the book was "The Future is Better Than You Think." And Jan and I recently researched it again for a Stuttgart-based mobility brand, because they are dealing with many people that are anxious about their work when they lose their jobs or things like that. And the future is better than you think. I liked it. Started with how did technology change the world for the good. And I can't recall all the examples, but one was that, for instance, a Maasai warrior nowadays has more, I think, 100 times more access to information than Bill Clinton did. Things like there were some really interesting facts that were, and of course there are a lot of downsides when we come to this perception thing again, but there are also very upsides, how technology changes the world for the good and not just being the entire world. The other thing, and I want to speak about perception like this and about fear, and not to be too optimistic. It was actually, I think, 8 years ago when my dear friend and fellow artist Julius von Bismarck became one of those famous artists in meanwhile, and I developed a project that was called Public Face. And the people who know me know that I like to tell this anecdote. It's a gigantic smiley face. And what we did is with a software from Fraunhofer Institute, which was back then very new, a face recognition software that enabled us, which is now very established, to read emotions out of people's minds. And we hacked some surveillance cameras in Berlin, set up Public Face, a 10-meter tall steel construction, and it showed the average mood of Berlin citizens. Back then, when it was first exhibited in Berlin, people were like, ah yeah, what the fuck, some artists, weird technology, funny smiley face, whatever. And of course the discourse that we wanted to start was like, you know, Big Brother. As artists. The sculpture was eventually sold and is now touring pretty much over the world. Will be exhibited in Hamburg beginning of next year. In a bigger version even. And when we exhibited, it was then slept a little bit. Nobody was really, press wasn't really interested. It was like kind of like a nice, funny artist thing. When we exhibited again, when we sold it to Vienna and exhibited in Vienna, maybe that was like 4 years ago or something. It was in the major news. It was like the people where we got threatening email. People were like, well, you are not gonna fucking measure my emotions, shitty artist, asshole, hacker. You know. I mean, it was tense. We were like in national radio, in television shows. We didn't go to the shows because we didn't want to. But it had a major impact, and I want to talk and to come back. And it's about perception. It's, do we perceive this as something that affects me? And how much does it affect me? Or what things am I doing that I'm not really aware of, that are making my life better, maybe worse, maybe, I don't know, who's tracking me when, where. But I thought the Public Face anecdote always kind of is a really funny anecdote to tell, because it's the same technology, but now everybody has it in the phones and knows about it, and knows that there's a certain, danger point.
We have time for 2 more questions.
2 more questions, maybe with one answer. Yeah. So like 5 more minutes, then we're done. Go ahead.
Like, what's something that could happen that would make you worried about the creativity in Berlin?
But how often did we already hear Leipzig is the new Berlin, Prague, Detroit, whatever? How shocked was I when my club closed and had to move away? But it's still going on. I mean, I think there's the appreciation of cultural things is still happening, and I have the feeling I would be very sad if that would disappear. That if people would not appreciate artists who do little events, hardly earn any money with that, but really bring in their soul and their ideas and so on. If that appreciation would disappear. But I have the feeling here is a very strong appreciation for that, and I hope it stays like this. It's not about, oh, you make so much money and so on, but it's really about art. I mean, really here, people don't care about how much money you make. They care about what you do, and then that's the interesting part. When you go on a party, you don't talk about I make money. It's like, what do you do? And why do you do it? Why do you do that this way and so on? The discussion is really good, and I hope that this will stay.
Like us here.
And Jan.
You a different question. If one of you has an answer to that question as well, maybe. No. Okay. I think you mentioned something very interesting, that the companies here have a very unique way of going about their business. It's a more of like a collaborative, helping, sharing way to do. I think it came from you, Reto. Maybe can you elaborate a bit further on that? Because I think it would really, with regards to what it's really exciting, is with decentralized exchanges, everything like platform economy. Maybe that would give Berlin a unique edge when it comes to these innovations.
Well, I said already what I knew about it, but I was really impressed again by you telling me working for Beluga, but Beluga and somebody of the founders of Beluga is still employee with one of the Beluga clients, and it's like a back and forward situation of are you inside, are you outside. This is one of the things I feel completely. This whole idea of being an employee here and nowhere else is changing. People are doing projects here and there. We're living much more in a network, kind of situation. I mean, I think we are kind of weird that we work for our own companies for so many years already, but the company's changed a lot. So, but the normal is really constantly in projects and not in an finally I got an employment and that's it for the rest of my life. And this is what I mean, and this is being, of course, partly technically reflected in new kind of ownership structures, for example, enabled through blockchain. Or of course through Slack and similar things, but I think there's a lot of things happening like
But
this.
Don't you think this is a global trend, or like, because my hope would have been that Berlin has even more of that, because sort of maybe employees here feel even less loyalty towards their firms. So, you look skeptical.
I'm not sure I get it, to be honest.
My question is,
I think it's the same everywhere. I think it's
that's my question. That's my question. Do you think
No, I think the special thing about Berlin is that sort of itch you have to do projects even when you're doing your own thing. Like we throw these random exhibitions just because we deal with photography and we love photography that actually don't add to the bottom line, right? Don't contribute to the bottom line. But I don't know about loyalty or anything like that. I think it's status quo bias. It's the same everywhere. I think employment laws are actually much worse here than anywhere else, particularly in the States for employers. But people don't tend to shift that much. It's decentralized. Like the whole crypto world is slightly different because they're always on retreats. That's a totally different piece that I would rather not touch with.
All right. So the employment question was too dry for an end. Jan, there's a very quick yes or no question.
Yes or no question. Very briefly, and defining the next decade. And you're all working in communications or content, right? All your companies are around, at least in that realm or that idea. So if we're talking about technology can also be shaping culture. Right. What would you do? What other systems like politics, and you have a very broad idea of volunteering work in Germany, and then civil society is very important, and other things. What would you do if you don't need no money at all anymore? What field would you be interested in applying technology to?
Quick answers.
What field can you apply technology to? Besides working for companies, because we just again have
then you're not in
only ideology of we're funding startups, but we have culture, we have politics, we have social. We can do so much more. You maybe do that in parts, but that's why I'm interested. What would you do with technology besides?
So I personally have two things that I'm actually working on. One is bringing agile processes to government. Bringing agile processes and a lot of the stuff that we do day to day to government, working with people very early on working with people that are actually in Brussels. When you look at Article 13 that's now being written up, and Article 11, and like these catastrophic laws that are written that have no understanding or GDPR, which basically was the top OKR for every single freaking company for the past 6 months. So I'm trying to figure out how we can bring some of the processes that we work with, iterative development, beta programs, pilots, stuff like that, into governance. That's the one. The other thing that I'm also trying to get off the ground is more around digital literacy in rural areas around Germany, and those both kind of involve technology.
So next time, start that, please. And not a real job.
Why don't talk about it?
I'm very interested in education and training and learning. I think that's one big aspect. And considering my own age, I'm also extremely interested in health and how technology will basically make us much more independent in my upcoming years.
I never actually had the pleasure to really be a good programmer myself. So I also like in fields, I think, of education as well. But I also really like the aspect of seeing technology as something that you can craft, as something that, because my background is being an artist, of course. And to follow up on that, to follow up on what you said before, and to give it also like kind of a final statement is, when will creativity leave or disappear? Is it when all the creative people leave? I would say that if everybody leaves, then creativity dies, because it will always be there, and technology will also always be there, I guess. And always very good at the works, I guess.
Great. So this was volume 1 of defining the next decade. When's the next decade going to start? By the way, we have 1.5 years left.
Yeah, we got
like a few more discussions about it. Thanks for stopping by. Give a hand to our.
Yeah. So basically, we plan to have these at least every 3 months. So it's really important that you kind of maintain the conversations that you have with these different people, because the city is defined by you. All of us in this room have an active role in shaping this, and the point of these conversations is to kind of encourage us to think, what are some of the things that we want to see based on some of the new perspectives and insights that we have. So it's not, it's conversations. It's not one-way dialogue. We also have Post-its on this table and a small box to help us figure out what we talk about next. So we really want to hear from you. What topics are you guys interested in? What do you want to hear about? So we can help have some of those conversations. If you want to figure out when the next one is, find us on Facebook. It would have been up here, but it's not. Technology, creativity. Keep track of that. We have different events in different cities around the world. So if you're in any of those cities, by all means, go see those. Matt will be starting one in San Francisco. If you're in there, come see this guy. But yeah, again, thank you so much for taking the time to come out and hang out with us, and hopefully we'll see you next time.